Hello everyone and welcome to Nexus Gold's webinar. This is Jack Bourdais from RB Milestone Group. Nexus Gold is publicly listed on the Canadian Venture Exchange under symbol NXS. Joining us today is Nexus Gold CEO Alex Klenman, who will be going through the company's recently announced September investor presentation. Subjects covered will include the company's 3 current projects at Bouboulou, Rukunga, and Niangouela. The company's recently completed 105 line kilometer soil sampling survey on the Rukunga exploration permit and its upcoming milestones. We'll open up the call to live Q&A, whereby Alex will be able to answer any questions you might have. If you're logged into the webinar platform, you'll be able to submit questions to us directly in the chat module in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. If you have joined us only by phone, you can access the web platform by going to readytalk.com/join. and enter the code 514-7677. Again, that's readytalk.com/join and the code 514-7677. Please note today's call may contain forward-looking statements that are subject to risks and uncertainties that may cause actual results, performance, or developments to differ materially from those contained in the statements and are not guarantees of future performance of the company. No assurance can be given that any of the events anticipated by the forward-looking statements will occur, or, if they do occur, what benefits the company will obtain from them. Lastly, some risk and uncertainties may be out of the control of the company. Please note this call will be recorded and will be made available on the company's website at www.nexusgoldcorp.com following today's discussion. It is now my pleasure to introduce you to Nexus Gold CEO, Alex Klenman. Alex?
Thank you, Jack, and thanks to all who are joining us and who will be listening to this on the web. First and foremost, Nexus Gold is we're an exploration and development company primarily based in West Africa. We're focused in Burkina Faso, which is one of the more prolific countries in West Africa. For gold mineralization, there's a lot of active mines, a lot of active explorers, and we'll get to that momentarily. We have nearly 500 square kilometers, over 460 of highly prospective property in Burkina along well-known greenstone belts in and around major producers and explorers. We've got 3 specific projects that I'll get into momentarily. We've had high-grade discovery on a grassroots play, and we've got 2 projects that are more advanced. We like to call them, advanced exploration. We're a lot further along the path on our way to a resource there. So we'll get into that, and I'm going to pop through these slides for you and go through the pertinent facts as we get along here. We have a standard disclaimer at the front of our presentation, and Jack went over a little bit of what it entails. Nothing crazy there. As I mentioned, we have 3 different projects. We have the Bouboulou Concession, which is a 38 square kilometer concession with a lot of historic work done by companies like Rocks Gold and Maiden and Riverstone Resources. We have the neighboring properties called Rukunga, and Rukunga adds 150 square kilometers to Bouboulou, so we're up around 188 there. And we also have a 178 square kilometer project called Niangouela, which is northeast of our Bouboulou concession. That was an early stage discovery for us. We literally grabbed the property based on some visuals, and the early results were astounding for us. But again, that's very grassroots, and we're working our way through that. The first slide of interest, really, for people who want to know a little bit more about Burkina Faso is the one we're on now, slide number 4, which shows you the country of Burkina. The Birimian greenstone and Gorin and Borimo greenstone belts are all in green. And then you can see in and around us the mines, deposits of note. You can see the major players in the area: Endeavour Mining, Teranga Gold, IM Gold, B2 Gold, some very large players in the area. We happen to be real close to Nord Gold, which is a private Russian company that has a almost 3.5 million ounce deposit a few clicks east of our Niangouela project. The first project that we'll go through here in a little bit more detail is the Bouboulou Gold Concession. Bouboulou was once known as Bisa West. The company that had it under that name was Rox Gold. Rox Gold is now a $500 million market cap, mining a very high-grade deposit in Burkina called Yaramoko. This was one of 3 properties they held in 2011 and 2012. We ended up with the property. Our vice president of exploration, the geologist, is a man named Warren Robb, and he was the chief geologist at Rox Gold at that time. When Rox lost the property, we grabbed it. So their bad luck, our good luck. We have paved access and power. Even though it's West Africa, there's an idea that this is extremely remote. It is not. It's easy to get to. There happens to be some flooding in the area right now. It's the tail end of the rainy season, but other than that, there's no issues in terms of access, infrastructure, or accessibility. You'll notice on this slide, we highlight what are known. There's the greenstone belts are all through West Africa. They come up through Ghana, and we're right on trend. There's millions of ounces of gold along these belts. There are also these fault zones that bisect them, and the Sabki Shear is one of those. And the Sabki Shear kind of goes through both of our projects that you see here, Bouboulou and Niangouela, and also onto the Rukungu concession. So these are important geological settings, geological events that control and gold deposition in West Africa. So we're in terms of geology, they're very positive things to see. As I mentioned, Rox Gold was the primary holder here of this concession, Bisa West. We renamed it Bouboulou. That's the name of the village that's attached to the area. One thing I should point out is most of the mines and major discoveries in West Africa are almost always precluded by artisanal miners, or pyres as they're called, which actually literally means ore thief. Anyway, they are the locals who work by hand. They dig by hand, they pan gold, and that is how they make a living. So we have a village near us called Bouboulou, and most of the local artisanal miners are from that village. So we decided to rename it Bouboulou, and that's gone over well with the locals. We also employ some of the locals when we do our drill programs and our other types of work. Rox Gold had some phenomenal results in 2011. You can see some of those results here. West Africa is mostly lower grade bulk tonnage situations. So when we're seeing 4-gram hits, 5-gram hits, 12-gram hits in diamond holes and in nice lengthy runs in RC holes of 1 gram to 2 grams or more, that's exactly what you want to see. I mean, it's always great to get big numbers. It's very sexy. But if you're looking at establishing an ore body that's an economic ore body, you need these types of intersects, and you need more of them. So we're pleased with those numbers. Other people were pleased with those numbers, and we're continuing to show those numbers as we move along. Bouboulou is made up of 5 drill tested zones. These were, as I mentioned, primarily identified by artisanal workings. So our modus operandi is really go in and you sample those areas, you get an idea of what the numbers are that they're dealing with, and then you go in and you drill them. And we've done that at all 5 of those zones. All 5 of those zones have returned good assay numbers. They're contained in slides in this deck if anybody wants to really dig into all the numbers that are there. But anyway, the nice thing is that footprint on Bouboulou leads us to believe over that 38 square kilometer piece of land that we're dealing with an ore body. And that's one of the things we'd like to prove as we move along. In the summer of 2017, we did our first drill program at Bouboulou. Again, we had some very similar results to Rox Gold's results, 23 meters of a gram, including 5-gram hit there. There's 8 meters of 4 grams. Those are really good numbers. We got, some 1 meter runs of 15 grams and 23 grams. Those are good things to see. Again, that proves up what we think. We're on our way to proving a resource. It's going to take some time to drill it out and get enough holes to be able to put together a resource estimate or a PEA, but we're well on our way, and Bouboulou keeps giving, so we're happy about that. That slide in particular, slide number 11, shows you the Diamond program results from 2017. You'll see some extended runs there. You'll see some good grades, and we were happy with that. The next slide is essentially a combination of the 4 previous known zones with both Rock's Gold's numbers and our numbers, and that's really just half gram or more. There were many other holes that pulled less than half gram. I have to mention at this point also that, half gram doesn't sound sexy, but there are mines running in West Africa and Burkina that are half gram mines. It's economic, it's close to surface, it's open pittable. There's tons of infrastructure there, so it's not very expensive. I've worked in Nevada, we've worked elsewhere in Yukon and other areas in North America, and it actually turns out that those costs are higher than West Africa. You could make the argument, well, there's maybe there's geopolitical stability in Canada or the U.S. I have different arguments as to why it's easier for us to work in West Africa. I can tell you one thing: for a small cap company to cozy up to majors with prime ground, Burkina is a lot easier. If you can find anything in Nevada, it's usually a pincushion that's fallen through several hands before it gets to you, and there's a reason for that. The next slide here is of importance. There are clearly 3 large trends that come across the Bouboulou concession. We named the trends. We essentially accumulated all the data and put our data to it, and we're able to prove that these trends exist. 5,000 meters each, or 5 kilometer trends, which leads us to what we ended up doing here. There's a slide here that you can read online. It comes from our geologist. It's about the resource potential at Bouboulou. We think there's multiple potentials here of a low-grade bulk tonnage thing, but also a smaller, higher-grade deposit. So hopefully we can prove that out in the next 8 to 12 months. That's our goal. Those trends that I mentioned leak off of our property. So we wanted the concession next door. It was called Rukunga, and we got it. So there's 250 square kilometers at Rukunga plus the 38 at Niangouela. Gives us 288 square kilometers. So a very large package. Again, why we did this was not just the land grab, but you could see the artisanal workers were on Rukunga, and you could see just visually that it looked like those trends were extending. We did some sampling. Obviously, as I mentioned, that's what we do first, and we pulled some good double-digit samples from 3 artisanal zones. We followed that up with a 3,000-meter reverse circulation drill program in October of 2017. In particular, the Koaltenga zone returned some great numbers. Those numbers are there for you to see: 32 meters of a gram, including 5-gram hits, 6 meters of over 2.5 grams, another 34-meter run of the 10 holes, including 4 meters of 5 grams. Those are good numbers. Those are numbers that get larger companies excited, and I'll give you an exact reason or example of that in a moment. Those are the numbers from the better numbers from the holes at Koaltenga that we did, the 10 holes. So those are good numbers. They're solid. Again, 100 meters from surface is open pittable. We like the numbers, and so did others. And again, I will get to why others liked it. In fact, I'll say now exactly why. We showed these numbers and these projects to a company called Sandstorm Gold. Sandstorm trades on the TSX Venture. They're almost $1 billion market cap Canadian, 700 million market cap US. They are a streaming royalty company. They have deals with about 150 companies across the planet, maybe more, 170, that include juniors, micro juniors like ourselves, and major companies like Endeavour Gold. We took our project to them. We got a meeting with them. They took a look at the data, and through a pretty lengthy specific due diligence process, they acquired 17% of Nexus earlier this year. So they're a large stakeholder, a large partner. They don't typically do this as a stock play. They do this if they believe what you're onto will eventually become a workable mine, because in return for that investment, they get a 1% NSR. They get a streaming royalty out of it. So all of the projects that we have 2% NSRs, 1% is held by the optioner in the private entities in Burkina, 1% is held by Sandstorm. So Sandstorm's business model is to find what they think will turn out to be mines, and they make a bet. But they don't just make blind bets on something that's totally speculative. They did their due diligence, they did their work, and they are a large stakeholder in the company. So we followed up our recent work that we've done for the drill program at Rukunga. We've just done a 9-kilometer soil grid program. Now that was designed to connect. If you look at the right side of the graphic in front of you here on slide 20, you'll see the 5 zones at Bouboulou, Ruema, Bouboulou 2, Koala, Bouboulou 1, and Koaltenga. That trend, the PR trend, clearly comes across Rukunga, which is what we were hoping. And the 3 zones that we have drill tested on Rukunga are Koaltenga, Porphyry, and Gunga on the lower left side. So we were hoping that we could connect the 5 zones at Bouboulou with the 5 drill tested zones in Rukunga, and now we've done that. The soil grid program, you can see the grid lines came back positive. We're getting some really nice hits, and these are just anomalous soil samples, but up to 10,000 ppb, which is pretty sufficient. So we're now, the next step here is we're going to start to drill out the zone area between those 3 on the left and the 5 on the right, and then we start to pop some holes down there and get some good numbers. That's very compelling. It paints the picture of a 15-kilometer trend, which is a very sizable footprint. The other property that we have here is the Niangouela gold concession. Now, Niangouela was a visual pickup. Warren, our geo, who has a decade of experience in Burkina, went to look at this property, liked what he saw in terms of the orpires or the artisanal activity. He could see quartz vein outcrops, very reminiscent of the Aramoko area, which is what Rox Gold established as a high-grade mine. So we grabbed the property. It was a very easy property to grab. Cost us $10,000 down. The first sample numbers that came back for us, we had 2,950 grams. We had 403 gram visible gold rocks. Really astounding at the time. Literally, our market cap exploded on that news because it's very sexy. Obviously, visible gold is very sexy. So I'll get to what happened next with Niangouela. So Niangouela, again, is our easternmost concession. It's sizable, 178 square kilometers. It's near the Koaltenga mine, and the Sabki shear cuts right across it. So it has good geology, good provenance. There are some of the numbers on the initial sampling program. I mean, if you get a 49-gram sample, you're happy, but let alone a 403 or 2,950 gram. The 403-gram sample was visible gold, similar to the rocks on that photographed on that page. But the 2,950 gram, interestingly, was free gold in that you couldn't see visually. It was in the shear. So that was also compelling too, because if the shear zone is also mineralized as opposed to just the quartz veins, then you're on something potentially even better. So we've done some geophysics. We've put together what we think is how this works. Again, we had no history on this property. Nobody else had it. We were the first ones to drill it. The Maiden drill program was very successful. Out of the first 9 holes, I think 8 of them hit. We had visible gold in 3 holes. 26.69 grams over almost 5 meters, very close to surface, including 132 grams over a meter. Was very, very good. Obviously, we liked that. We followed this up. There's the initial drill results from the first round at Niangouela. We followed it up with the second round, and they were essentially misses. We expected that. Exploration is like baseball. I mean, if you fail 7 out of 10 times, you're good. We expected some misses there as we begin to get an understanding of how Niangouela how the lithology works and how the geology works there, and we got some misses. So we've cooled our jets on Niangouela. We've just done some more holes there. I'll get to that now in a moment. If you look at our this was put together the next 18-24 months. We're now in the sort of 12 to 18 month range. We've just done 4,000 meters of drilling this summer at all three projects. We begin to get those results back over the next 4 to 6 weeks, actually any time. And we also did that 9-kilometer soil grid program as part of our summer program as well. So we'll see if Niangouela is giving or if we're still figuring out what's what there. But we're really trying to expand the footprint at Rukunga and Bouboulou. We think that's where our resource lies, and we're going to develop that over the next year and hopefully take a sizable resource to market that's both economic and puts us in a position to be a buyout target or an acquisition target. Now, our share structure, is very good. Right now we've got about 35 million shares out. Again, if we can get to a resource with 50 million shares out, that structure bodes well for a good takeout price. We think there's a premium that'll be attached to the fact that we're as tight as we are. Most of the options that we have, even warrants, are out of the money. We did a 10-to-1 rollback earlier this year after 2017 went sideways on us. Out with the old management, I took over as chairman. I moved into the president CEO role, and Warren, our geologist, moved from senior geo to vice president exploration, and the two of us are essentially running the company. We also brought in a man named Ian Stalker, who is well known in the business. He's with a company called K92, a gold company in Papua New Guinea. They're running a very high-grade gold mine there. He's also behind Plateau Energy Metals, uranium lithium company in Peru, and LSC Lithium, another large lithium player. But Ian's background is primarily in gold and in West Africa as well. So I've been able to add some requisite people, as you can see our bios here, to strengthen the company. We have a new CFO as well, and also you'll see that Jean-Claude, our country manager, was also the country manager for Rocks Gold in 2011-12 when they made their major discoveries. So basically that's it. I think I've covered everything. You can get a hold of me anytime, info@nexusgoldcorp.com or 604-558-1919. I'm available. I'm a very approachable and active and responsive CEO. So we're here to answer questions, and hopefully we've piqued your interest with what we think is a very strong gold play heading into what potentially could be a very strong gold market.
Thank you, Alex. We'll now open up the call to first question received is, could you please elaborate on the flooding conditions at the site?
Yeah, absolutely. There's essentially two seasons in Burkina. There's a long, hot, dry one, and then a wet season. That wet season is typically, July, August, September, or June, July, August. If you see what's happening in South Carolina at the moment with Hurricane Florence, those types of weather events typically start their life over West Africa and then move across the Atlantic. So Burkina has been hit recently with a lot of wet weather, a little late in the season, but it's there. And these things happen. They flood the zones, and then, quickly as they start, they're gone. And now, the last 2 years in a row, we have drilled and worked directly through those wet seasons. This particular event over the last few weeks is a little bit more than normal, but it'll lead to a nice green season and then the long, hot, dry season. So nothing major, just sort of curtails any of the groundwork that we were doing, which is really just mapping and sampling at this point as a follow-up to our drill program.
Thanks, Alex. What would be the approximate capital requirements for your upcoming milestones?
Good question. We're capitalized. We're getting our work done, but to cross that finish line, I mean, there's a number of positives to being able to say do a financing in the next month or two, and that would be that we're sending a signal to the market that the drawbridge is up. We have enough to get across the finish line in the next 12 months, and that finish line being a compliant resource. So, I mean, $2-3 million over the next year could do it. We could probably do it on less. These things always, we've got to build contingencies in. We market the company and typically, attend conferences and things, but really the primary dollars need to go in the ground. $1.5 million to $2 million over the next, we can raise that in the next 3 to 4 or 5 months, even, now. We do it. And again, I think that position of strength is we're capitalized. We're going to get across the finish line. There's not going to be any more financings. And, with our structure at $50 million or so, with 17, there's another company I should mention, Belgravia Capital out of Toronto. They have 7% in Nexus. So there's 2 companies that own 25% of Nexus. And so we're a little tighter than even it appears to be. So if we can raise that money and get there, we'll get across the finish line in a timely manner.
Thanks, Alex. 2 more questions. Do you see Sandstorm as a potential takeout partner?
No, they don't typically buy out companies, but one of the strategic advantages to getting involved with Sandstorm is not only, as I mentioned, do they have streaming deals with smaller companies, they also have them with companies like Endeavor. Now you might ask yourself why a company that's, whatever their multi-billion-dollar market cap, Endeavor, why they would need to farm out a streaming deal with a company like Sandstorm is, you'd have to ask Endeavor. Nevertheless, Sandstorm has a good relationship with Endeavor. Endeavor is the big dog in Burkina, and we obviously have a conduit to get to Endeavor on the inside to present Nexus. So we're hoping we can get to a solid resource estimate, take that to Endeavor through Sandstorm and maybe get some access. We know that the nice thing, if you look at that map that I showed you earlier, is Burkina is a small country and everybody's pretty crowded. Those majors, they all know who's who in the zoo and they watch all the smaller companies. There are other companies ahead of us, obviously, that are probably primary takeouts, companies like Orezone, for example, or even Teranga, which is a producing company as well. But in terms of developing earlier stage assets and getting those assets to market, they're aware of us. We know they're aware of us. And maybe our relationship with Sandstorm will facilitate something when we get to resource stage.
Thank you. Final question. Are you open to or are you currently exploring other acquisitive opportunities? And if so, are they only in West Africa or are you looking elsewhere?
We are looking at other potential projects, both in Burkina and elsewhere. We have always been looking elsewhere. We started life as a company in Nevada that was arduous, expensive, and difficult for a junior. There's a reason why Nevada is home to some very large companies. Obviously, it's a prolific gold region, but you have to have enormous resources to deal with the restrictions placed on you by the Bureau of Land Management, BLM, and the U.S. Forestry Service. There's a lot of issues there in terms of native birds, archaeological finds, and so on and so on. And it can be quite taxing on small companies. We have no such issues in West Africa, but we are looking in some jurisdictions in Canada in particular. There's a couple of areas. Red Lake in Ontario is a prolific region, as is the Golden Triangle in northern British Columbia. So we are looking closer to home. We have deals on the table. Most of them are too expensive. People who bring those deals ask a lot, but we are definitely looking at expanding our portfolio into different jurisdictions. But West Africa, we have some irons in the fire there as well.
Thank you, Alex. and that concludes Nexus Gold's webinar. Again, Nexus Gold is publicly listed on the Canadian Venture Exchange under symbol NXS. Thank you, everyone, for your time.